happy Friday afternoon. Welcome to Chattable, Hollywood Stories, Insights, and Overshares. I am your host, Gunnar Rohrbacher, founder of Actors Comedy Studio. You can find me in social media in all places at Gunnar the Comedy Coach on Facebook, Insta, and Twitter. Hello and welcome. So what is Chattable? Chattable is simply an informal conversation with some notable industry guests and friends to share their insights and some personal experiences and anecdotes about life in this industry we call entertainment. Today's guest, I am very excited to present, best known as the creator and host of UnCabaret, one of my favorite live show experiences ever, and most often recognized as the performance artist in Sex in the City, the incomparable Miss Beth Lapides. Miss Beth Lapides.
Hi. There you go. There you go.
Hi, how are
Dramatic
you?
pause. I'm good. How are you?
Was so dramatic. I'm great. Good to see your face. You're looking lovely as always.
You too.
Thanks for the chat. So I think let's begin here because you're so well known and associated with UnCabaret. For the uninitiated, can you tell us what it is and maybe how it began?
It's a show that is ostensibly a stand-up show, but was the first alternative comedy show. It's more story based. It began when I was doing a one-person show at a place called the Women's Building, and they were laughing more than I thought they should. And I said, when was the last time you laughed? And they said, oh, we don't laugh. We're women and we're artists and we're lesbians. And if we go to comedy clubs, they make fun of us. And I said, I'll make you a show. It'll be unhomophobic, unxenophobic, unmisogynist. It'll be the UnCabaret. And it really just started like that. It just really was like a download. I didn't even know really what that meant. I knew that I was frustrated in the comedy world as it was, which is, of course, this was in the late 80s, so different than it is now. Things have definitely changed. But I was still in venues like the Comedy Store following Andrew Dice Clay, and it was just like very misogynist. And I remember one night following him, and the audience was laughing, and I was like hating them for laughing at him and hating him for doing material and hating myself for hating everyone. And I don't do well with hate. And I was just like, there's got to be a better way. And I just did have that in my head, like, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. And, that's how innovation happens. You start to think there's got to be a better way, whether it's that you're writing and you're not happy with what you're writing and it's another draft, or, you are, whatever it is, whatever where the invention comes is usually from dissatisfaction. So a lot of times with creativity, it's about noticing that dissatisfaction and then waiting and letting it come to you while you sort of do the same thing, which is what I kept doing. I was doing one-person shows and stand-up and one-person shows and stand-up and didn't quite find a way. And so it was my own frustration. Then those shows, we did a bunch there, and then they lost their funding, and we moved to a couple of other spaces until we landed at Luna Park, which is on Robertson in West Hollywood. And we were there 7 years. And we've been in we've run pretty consistently, at least we're twice a month on Zoom, but we run pretty consistently for that 27 years. We had a big 25th anniversary. But, at that time when it really exploded, it wasn't just my own frustrations. There was also in the comedy community, people were frustrated. I mean, people were in the clubs doing tight tens, which is sort of the same thing over and over and over again, so that you could get your late night spots, so you could get your sitcom, so you could get, it just was sort of like one thing was a showcase for another thing, and where was the artistry? And so when we started, it wasn't like people who weren't working. It was people who had already been on Saturday Night Live, had already done HBO one night stands. It wasn't like beginners trying to break in. It It was people who were in the industry that were trying to look for a new way and find a way to be connected to the art form they love so much. And that's the thing about show business. It's also popular arts. So, people say, well, it's business, it's show business. And I go, yeah, but it's popular arts. It's still got to be art. It doesn't have to be. I mean, there's a ton of stuff in show business that's not art. That's just, it's maybe not even entertaining, but you have to decide for yourself, what your criteria is and how you want to proceed. So that's sort of the beginning idea. And then I hosted it. The group that's been involved has been amazing and has expanded and grown. And every iteration, we've been on Comedy Central. We're a ton of stuff on Audible. We've had offshoot shows that are reading nights. We sort of the first storytelling reading night that was showrunners, and we did a series of unaired pilots when there were still a lot of pilots being made that were great. That was called The Other Network that toured. So it's sort of a locus that has led to a lot of different things. One, Julia Sweeney's Broadway show, all sorts of different stuff. And some of the names that have been involved, Julia Sweeney, Patton Oswalt, Bob Odenkirk, David Cross, before Mr. Show, Kathy Griffin, Dana Gould, Margaret Cho, of course. Those were all people in the first, Ginny Garofalo, all people in the first wave, Andy Kindler, Andy Dick, Jeff Garlin. It's just an amazing group. That group was amazing. That group had such a synergy and was very cohesive, and they're socially connected as well. And it was really a moment. And over the years, many wonderful people have come through. That's sort of that's the thumbnail of UnCabaret.
So exciting, and I've been, a fan and an attendee for most of all the time. I mean, we've gotten to know each other better in recent years, but even back then, when I was going through the groundlings, getting my comedy training myself, I was there. I was there for the pilot reading shows back in the day. I saw the offshoots as well as the official UnCab.
Well, we've had a lot of great people come from the groundlings. I mean, Judy Toll, who is no longer with us, sadly, was one of the originals. She and Taylor Negron and I did after the Women's Building, we did a run at Highways. And that was really the DNA of UnCabaret, was set at those shows. And Judy brought in a lot of folks from the groundlings. It was through Judy that Kathy and Julia Sweeney came. And it was through Judy that Tim Bagley came, and Mike McDonald, all amazing performers, all from the groundlings.
Yeah, I mean, and Taylor Negron, rest his soul, watching him perform was a mind-bending experience. Tim was a friend of mine for like 30 years. I know it's such an exciting group of people who just are so talented, yes, but just deeply interesting.
Deeply interesting. That is our thing. I mean, what draws I have to do the work. I have to bring people on stage. It's not, I never look at a list and go, oh, how did that person get there? It's me and the people that I respond to. So most of the time, so.
You said a word in all. So first of all, I want to say this. Number one, thank you, because you have provided me personally with a tremendous amount of entertainment.
Thank you. Well, likewise, I mean, the audience is a big part of it. And I think this is something that maybe isn't stated enough. Comedy is nothing without the audience. And the UnCabaret audience was so smart. And at a time when really people were saying that can't be done, the idea that it's all new material, that you're going to come and you're going to talk about your now, and it's not a set. There was a lot of pushback from the comedy community, and it was really the audience that said, no, this is what we want to hear. We are going to bring our friends every week. And it was the same, because the same people kept coming. It was like, well, we can't keep doing the same thing. It doesn't even make sense. So it's the smartness of the audience and the audience bringing more audience. It was really, the audience is, it was me and my desire and the performers and their need and the audience and its hunger that really created UnCabaret. So thank you.
Yeah, and then also I'm going to just throw this in too, because words like pioneer and innovator, are maybe harder to say about ourselves. So I will gladly say about you, because I do think you are a pioneer, as well as an extraordinarily talented human being. So
Thank you. Well, I'm very attracted to the idea of pioneering. I don't necessarily think it's that great a thing to be. Though I admit that I am it. I don't know that there's any laudatory aspect to it. I moved to New York when Soho was like the day after there was nothing left in Soho, and I moved to Williamsburg, and which is, of course, if only I had that loft still. But I remember reading this book every night. That was my Bible. That was called Pioneers of the Urban Wilderness. And it excited me so much. And I remember also in my very weirdest, like darkest bohemian stage, I would watch Little House on the Prairie like it was a fucking, it was my lithium or something. I mean, that show really, really, the fantasy of being like in the wilderness on that show. So I appreciate that, and I take it because I think I am that. I wish I wasn't sometimes. I was like, sometimes I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna go do that, what other people are doing. And then somehow, here I am doing, creating does it mean to do Zoom comedy now?
Well, this is where we prove that this is just a real conversation and not just pre-planned questions, because I'm glad I brought that up, because our experiences are different. We do different things, but I feel like I'm in that lane too. And not to sound like a martyr, but it can be challenging when you're like,
it's challenging. Yeah. First to market. Yeah, sure.
Let me do it the way it's always been done. And anyway, to a degree, I take on that title too. There's just something in me that sees how things can be revolutionized. And see if we can twist the prism. And we know what people need, do
we know what people need? What do people need?
I think they do. Well, I mean, on a foundational level, I think people need to be heard, and I think they need to be understood. And I do think they're looking for leadership and guidance from somebody that they can vibe with and trust. So I'm not saying
you were going to say cookies. I think people need cookies.
I could use a good cookie. I did make myself organic banana nut muffins.
Oh, now we're talking about what people really need. No, people do need to be seen. I mean, the desire to be seen is so real. It's so real. And one of the ways people are seen is by seeing themselves reflected in characters and on stage in different ways. Like the first time you see if you're a Jewish girl and you see the first Jewish things in a culture that is all skinny blonde Christian girls, or if you're Black or trans or whatever it is, this is the push towards inclusion, is because if you don't feel seen and you are invisible, if you feel that you're invisible, you can't fully participate in your life. And one of the ways that you are not invisible is to see yourself. And the other way you're not invisible is to have other people see you. And it's both those things need to happen in order to really proceed healthfully through life. It's just that.
So well,
I don't know.
I
Off
agree.
the top of my head.
No, you do know, and look, the little gay kid born in San Diego also understands everything that you said. It's like, where am I? And, practicing comedy, learning comedy is not the only, but it is a tremendous vehicle to learn how to magnify your voice, because there is laughter also provides a certain safety, I believe.
Oh yeah, safety and release. And it's funny about laughter, because in my experience, the one thing that will keep an audience from laughing at things that seem like they should be funny is if they're worried about you. If an audience is worried, even 3%. Like an audience just has to know, which doesn't mean that you have to be okay. Like you can be as fucked up as you want to be, but you have to be so okay with whatever that is for an audience to feel safe to laugh at you, because I think that it's because people are actually nice. I know that's not a popular opinion, and people are, we're ingrained to think like laughing at somebody. So you have to feel so, and it's why it's easier still for boys than girls, or gender male than gender female, because people are still afraid of her. I mean, women are still more vulnerable, culturally more vulnerable. And so women have had to come up with all these tactics. I mean, you saw it the other night with Kamala. You saw the smiling, how, I mean, she had to do her entire job and still work her smile like it was a second job. I mean, it was so much. I mean, she did a great job, and it's authentic smile, and it works from the outside in, and it's a whole complicated thing that happens when you've been told your whole life to smile. But she's doing so much work reassuring us the entire time. And a female comedian is much in the similar position. In this way, you have the tough broad, but you also have nutty girls, and you also, there are different archetypes for men than women in comedy still. And there are some ways that women can be like a guy and sort of do guy material, but not fully. Anyway, it's interesting.
I could talk. There's so many different avenues. I'll just say this for now. I was always baffled, by any thought or expression that women aren't as funny as men. Because I grew up going, first of all, my family just had no issue with gender in any direction. So I was just like free to, and they also didn't give a crap what I did and what I watched. So I was like, have you seen Phil Distiller? Have you seen Carol Burnett? Have you seen Joan Rivers? Like, they're the funniest. So I never understood
They
it.
were in their own context. The thing that where people are saying men are funny, women aren't funny, is in the context of a comedy club, which has been defined by men to a large extent. Carol Burnett was funny. She actually scared me. I actually didn't. I know this is like I shouldn't even say this in public, but she wasn't. I thought she was kind of old fashioned. I really went for like Lily Tomlin and Goldie Hawn, and Laugh-In was like so much speed. But whatever. So. Yeah. But the comedy clubs, which is our generation's definition really of what's funny, they are very male dominated. It'll less so, but still, I mean, the rape culture in comedy clubs is real. We have the whole, I don't want to name names, but everybody knows names and everybody knows what's going on. And I have somebody in my class now who is in class because she was part of busting somebody. She was a producer on a show and was part of busting a guy and got sort of like slowly edged out last year. I mean, this is real in the comedy. This is still so real in the comedy business.
Okay, I heard and agree. So let's move into, I mean, we've kind of referred to it a lot already up until this point, but you do also teach. Mm-hmm. So what is your class? How do you define
magic? It's magic. I don't know what it is. I follow my students. I've called it, over the years it's evolved, and I started just teaching because people wanted to learn how to do the UnCab style, and there was nowhere really, nobody was teaching it. And how did they get to do it? There was nowhere else to even do it. There were no like open mics to try it. And the demand was there, and sure, all right. And so I started doing it there, and we called it the UnCab Lab. And then after doing it for a while, and it was good, it was solid and interesting, and it was writing and performing together. But after a while, we thought, well, why are we calling it the UnCab Lab if people don't never heard of UnCab, they won't even know what it is, and wouldn't other people want to do it, and why do you limit it to people who know what UnCabaret is? And then I started teaching at Kripalu Center for Yoga and Health over the summers, and so it was sort of, you know, human potential meets writing. And so at that point we started calling it The Comedian's Way, and it had the sort of cover of The Artist's Way, but it was instead of flying, she was like, it was me, and I was like falling through the, it was like,
Because you slipped on a banana.
and then I broke up with my partner, and that was a lot of drama, and I decided I didn't want to teach with the title that we were using as a company together. And so I just went back to the Beth Lapides workshop, and then I came to Actors Comedy Studio, and you were like, that's not enough, think of something else. And then we talked for a while, and then we came up with infinite writing, because it was the infinite connection between the writing and the performing. That even if you're not going to ultimately perform, if you're a writer, saying the words out loud is a very huge tool in terms of getting your writing into your own voice, so that you can be a person, even if we're just writing spec scripts, that the person will read the script and go, this sounds like a different, this is a thing, this is an individual, and it's not neutral. And even if you don't want to write as a performer, the actual writing will matter. So, and it's all sorts of different projects, though. I have at this point, there's always somebody working on a script. There's always somebody working on a memoir. There's always somebody working on stand-up. There's always somebody working on storytelling for the Moth. Those are the different kinds of projects that people do. And really, I think of myself more at this point like a creativity coach who specializes in comedy and writing and performing to some extent. I'm not an acting coach. Though I have helped people with that. I wouldn't say if you're looking for an acting coach that you go to Gunnar. But I'm really great in helping people. It's really a workshop about your story and understanding your story. And I have different techniques I use for that. And part of it is also just me being able to see people. I mean, we're talking about being seen, and I have a trained eye, and I can go, oh, that's the thing. I wish I could package it and tell you, do this, do that. And some I can. There are exercises that I give people to do that are super helpful without me. But there is a little bit of just like, put yourself in front of me and I can help you find the thing. And it's, for me, it's a puzzle. It's not a course. I don't go through the same thing each time. Every class is me coming in with something inspiring that I'm thinking about. I mean, I'm a working artist who teaches. And so whatever's on my mind, I bring in, and, I have different principles. I try to make sure to get through each session, but I really let the class, meet each student and each class where they are. It's a writing and performing class.
Fantastic. The word that intersects all of those things, and to me, and you can tell me if I'm on point or not, is story and storytelling.
Story and storytelling. Yeah. I mean, it does come down to that. I mean, even as an actor, you're just then a vehicle for somebody. You have to see yourself in that story, and what your story is, and what your story is, and what's the best medium to tell it in. Different stories really work. I went to a school where you could make up your own major, and I majored in modes of expression, art, dance, and writing. And it's very shocking that, in fact, my life really has worked out that way, modes of expression. But that's Hollywood. I mean, that is show business. That is the entertainment business. That is life now. I mean, everyone's a hyphenate. I mean, I have people who are like, well, I want to act, I don't want to produce. And I'm like, well, I just read an article where Brad Pitt says there's no parts for him and he's going to produce. So maybe if he's going to produce, you might think that you could also be something more than just an actor, because it's, you have to open your mind to this. The hyphenate is what it is about. And there are different times that, like, your storytelling ability, you might find a story you want to produce that you're not in. But if you understand your story, your themes, as well as, what happened to you, and how do you sort out your story from the linear garbage bag of everything that's happened to you. How do you figure out what of everything you've been through is actually your story? And it's something that, they always say sell a painkiller, not a vitamin. I mean, that's like a marketing thing. But if you could sell a vitamin, the vitamin I would sell would probably be, I'm thinking about what kind of class I can make that's, one of these, you can download it and I don't need to be there classes. And I want to do one on knowing your own story, because my therapist is like, even for therapy, I wish everybody knew their story better. But I don't think it's something people, I'll probably end up doing something like writer's block, how to get through writer's block, what to do in your writer's block, because it's a painkiller,
It's a painkiller, not a vitamin. I do understand.
Painkiller, not a vitamin. People don't buy vitamins. They buy painkillers. I mean, they buy vitamins, but not as much.
Too, I don't know, I'm gonna have my video series out too, but I just understand where you come from as a teacher on such a deep level, because you really get the hit off of meeting the individual person. And I have principles, I have curriculum, it's all written down, it's all recorded, but at the end of the day, what keeps me going to do this is I met someone and they're like no one I've ever met, and I go, okay, your thing is not everybody else's thing. And it's still exciting to discover that, I think.
For me, it's a little bit like a crossword puzzle. I mean, I find it kind of relaxing because all I have to do is be present. As a teacher, it's a very Zen thing for me. All I have to do when I teach is really show up and be present for people, and it will come to me. And I might not get, and I always say to people, I don't know, I might not know in the first class what the thing is. And, I'll keep taking you in until, and it was funny when I taught at Kripalu, and all my classes is literally, I'll share at the beginning, and then everybody gets 10 minutes. That's the whole class. I mean, and then I'll try to make sure you know what you're going to work on during the week. And I taught a number of years at Chattable, but I can't remember one of the years. The last day of class, it was like an intensive. It was like a week-long intensive. And the last day, they all came in and they'd made this book, and the book of thanks, and it was so touching, and it was like this beautiful, beautiful ceremony almost. And it was like people were crying, and people had amazing breakthroughs. People's lives really changed that week. And they said, we really were going to mutiny after the first class. We were like, how can this work? What is it? I mean, it's not even anything. We're just going to come and we're going to talk for 10 minutes. And that's the whole thing that we paid for, is just to talk for 10 minutes. I mean, what is it? And after the first day, we were all going to quit, and then now we see it was, so I always think of that. It was, and I keep that book. I've thrown away a lot of things, but I always keep the book that they made me, because it's so, I mean, it's the simplest thing of just watching and sharing, but it's I've been doing my own work and working with these amazing, artists at UnCab and in all the other, from all the other jobs that I've ever done. And, it's the accumulated wisdom of that, plus the accumulated wisdom of teaching for all these years and seeing what happens, when you watch people do, how to watch a student, which is different than how to watch other things. Because in class, people are taking, this. I mean, you have to set up a class. I mean, anybody who's listening, if you're looking for a teacher, this isn't about me. Find a teacher that's gonna tell you to take risks and hopefully fail in class, because class is the place where you can really fail and have it be okay, and know that oh, I shouldn't do that, because that's going to be the thing that is, I don't get anywhere. Class is the place where you want to be I'm going to see what happens if I barely use any words. I'm going to see what happens if I talk only about emotions. I'm going to see what happens if you want to be able to come, I'm going to bring in a story that seems almost too vulnerable. And then, and then you sort of go, okay, well, this is how I learn what's too vulnerable. There is a thing, you feel like you're supposed to share everything, oh, look at all these people sharing everything. People said to me, oh my God, you're just so open. You share. I'm like, oh my God, I am not. You learn over the course of time the things that you have to keep for yourself. And the way that you learn it is by crossing the line and then saying like, oh, that's what that feels like. That doesn't feel good at all. So you want to find classes that where you respond to the teacher in a way that you feel safe with the teacher and you feel like you're going to have, the support and comfort. And, if we were in real life, I would hug you. I always tell my students, like, I hope somebody cries. Like, it's fine. Like, I know it's a comedy class, but really one of you will probably cry and I will hug you. And it's like, fine. People don't understand how much they have to do that work that's going to make them cry to get to the real thing.
Well, one of the components of producing humor and laughter, in my opinion, is authenticity.
Right.
Because we all have radar and we all have an antenna to some degree, however developed it is or it isn't. Our instincts tell us what's true and real. And when you become authentic in your most authentic self, there's vulnerability in that.
Yeah.
So it's not like trying to make somebody cry, but crying happens even in my class too sometimes. And it's like, I know it's a double-spaced, multi-cam, live in front of a studio audience sitcom script, but that couple's having trouble. So how do you personalize your last breakup?
Yeah.
It was awful. And I go, okay, now take that feeling and say it fast without the tears. I mean, that's the short version, but I think you relate to what I'm saying because it applies to writing, being the content creator, or enlivening the characters that someone else has created.
Yeah, totally. I mean, absolutely. Same.
Yeah, you've just got to find the truth of it. Is everyone funny, Beth?
I don't think so.
See how I just threw that in there? Just wanted to see what she'd say.
I don't think so. Do you think so? Everyone can be funnier, but there are some people, it's just, I mean, some people can be funny once a year, like my mom was really not funny, but maybe once every 5 years, she would say like the funniest thing that I've ever heard, but everyone's certainly not funny on purpose. Being funny on purpose it's a skill and you have to want it, and if you really want it, you can certainly get funnier. Being funny there are decisions that can be made. There are skills and tools but one of the most important things is timing. I mean, timing is one of the keys to comedy, and you have to be willing to learn timing if you don't have it in order to be funny. There's no getting around no timing. And if you just have timing, if you see a beginning comedian who is funny with no material, they can get material. But if you see a writer who can write good material but doesn't have the timing, there's nothing they can do to get that material funny unless they get the timing. Do we have time for a story about that? I have actually a good timing story. So when I started out in comedy, I was a New York performance artist, and I was a very successful performance artist, whatever that means, ironically. Anyway, I was touring and, I was doing hour shows. I was getting NEAs. I was, on the road with them. But I did think, I was in my 20s still, and I just thought, is that all there is? I was just like, so this is it. 10,000 people once a year I go around, and I don't know, it seemed like a good thing to do as a young person, but I just couldn't imagine being a performance artist for the rest of it. It was like a relationship that seemed to have an expiration date, and I wasn't sure. I was casting about, and I was kind of getting funnier as a performance artist. Like I was just, and it was almost getting to be too funny for performance art. And so I had in my mind, like comedy, I was like, yeah, I don't know. And then I tried it, and I started to try it, and I kind of started to fall in love with it. And I remember walking around the streets one day thinking, you can do what you do and also make it funny. And that's better. I was like, here's life. You go along and then you figure out what life is. And as soon as you do, you die. That's what life is. Like when you finally get it, you die. And that's either so tragic or funny. And it's like, you get to pick. And all right, I'm going to pick funny. And if it's funny, like, why don't I just be a comedian? Like, it just was like a philosophical, it's better thing. And then, so I started working as a comedian, and I was getting spots pretty fast because I did have a lot of stage time behind me, and I had a thing, I had a look, but I wasn't that funny yet. I mean, I was getting more time, that I was getting more spots than my funniness really warranted. But I had interesting writing, a look, and stage presence, and I was doing some bridge and tunnel gig, and the guy was, I got off stage, and the guy was just like, I don't get it. I don't get it. I mean, people are listening to you, but they're not laughing. I mean, that never happens. It was like, you know, Queens or something. And then I came back for, and he kept booking me. And then I came back, the next time he's like, I know what it is. I know what it is. You're doing it in the wrong time. You're like a jazz performer in a rock club. You're going 1, 2, 1, 2. When comedy is one, I was doing 1, 2, 1, 2, and comedy is like 1, 2, 1, 2. And, you know, and I was like, oh my God, that's so great. And I was like, I'll just walk around New York, like in that rhythm, and that'll be it. And of course it's not that simple, because to be, you know, a great comedian, you really need your own timing. Any great comedian, like if you really want to learn to be a great comedian, understand your own timing. That's the main thing that makes you great and not a hack, is that you are able to make your own timing communicatively funny. But you can't be afraid to punch. Like you need the comic punch. You need that beat. You need it. You gotta tell. You can't be asking people, is this funny? You have to be telling people, this is fucking funny. You know, and you can do it gently, and you can do it with grace, but the audience doesn't want to be sitting there figuring out, I wonder if this is funny. You know, it just needs to just be so much like you're telling them it's funny, and that's part of what makes it easy for them. I don't know about, I'm always telling my students, you know what about the audience? They're tired. That's what the audience mostly is tired. They've worked all day. They've worked at their job. Now they don't want to do another job. They want you to do they don't want to do your job too. You know, they want to just relax. So you have to tell them, you know, they don't want to know you better than you know yourself. You've got to do all the work of knowing yourself. You've got to know your story. You've got to know what you come off as. You've got to know your look. You've got to know all of it. And you've got to know, this isn't to say, look, if you're on stage with a great crowd and you're working, you are going to play with them, and they are going to tell you things, and you're going to talk to them, and they're going to bring stuff out of you, but you're not asking them if it's funny. That's my rap.
I am picking up what you're putting down. So preach, sister, because I say the same thing, to the point that, you know, I talk about operative words and functional keywords.
What is that?
Both in writing and in performing. Well, they're the words that we put natural emphasis on when we speak.
Okay.
So it would be like the adjectives and the adverbs and the words, and it's something that we do automatically anyway. And I always tell my students, it's just like you've been exposed to them your whole life, because they're in nursery rhymes, they're in songs, hickory dickory dock, the mouse ran up the clock. So you
got your K sounds. I mean, that's classic.
Well, the K sounds, but also, but putting the emphasis on the right words. So I'm yes-anding what you're saying, because in terms of being alone, standing behind a mic, and whether you're doing traditional stand-up or more storytelling, even the storytelling comedians need to land some blows.
Oh yeah. I mean, maybe even more, because if you're in the middle of a story and it's really going to be like a 10-minute story, a 20-minute story, I mean, what's better than that? But you have to have moments in there. You mean beats. I mean, you've got to have your beats, and in those beats, it's so much about phrasing. It's interesting because it's so interesting. I mean, you don't want to. It's such a balance. I mean, it's just such a balance. You don't want to freeze it. I mean, you don't want to ossify it to the point where, I mean, a lot of comedy is like syllable by syllable. I mean, it's just done syllable by syllable. And there's a great documentary, if you guys who are watching are looking for inspiring things, there's a documentary that a friend of mine named Jordan Brady made called I Am Comic. And I think there's an I Am Comic too. And it's a really wide range of people, from me to Carrot Top to, I mean, it's just like really like boldly varied. And there's, some really very super straight comedian was talking about being on the Tonight Show, and he was like, and then I got 3 seconds more laughs on that thing that I thought I was going to get. So I was trying to figure out, like, where am I going to pull 3 seconds? And I was like, I could not do that for $1 million, probably. I probably couldn't. It's just like everybody has different skill sets, and he's so mathematical. I mean, it was such a mathematical approach. But the way you build a story as a comedian or build material, a lot of times comedians will go out with bullet points, and find the wording on themselves on stage. It's not always written out word for word and then just said. A lot of it is like, but there are times that, you write out the exact phrasing for what the funny thing that it is, because if you reverse those two words, it is actually not going to work. And it is very syllable, as you just said with Hickory Dickory Dock, which is a great, super simple example of the principle. Hickory Dickory Dock is not going to work. It just isn't.
Thank you for, yes.
But you get it in your body. I mean, it's a thing that it's funny. This is another gender-based thing, and I don't have that many, but I noticed, like, at the beginning when male performers get nervous, they will tend to really flatten out. They really will start to be just as interesting, Gunnar, because I'm very nervous right now, but I'm okay. I think I'm going to be okay. And when women get nervous, they just really tend to just get super high. And it's just like a thing. And either one of those can be corrected as soon as you hear it. You just have to start to listen for it, and you can mechanically reverse engineer it. And once you adjust it from the outside, you actually start to feel differently on the inside. The outside can affect the inside, which is what I think is sort of interesting about Kamala and the smile also. I mean, having to smile like that does change how you feel, and it is a blessing and a curse. But when we've been editing the UnCabaret stuff over the years, it's super interesting, because when you look at, when you do audio editing, you see it across your screen, and the picture of each person's voice looks so different. It's almost like a photograph, and I can, I could hear the difference between Bob Odenkirk and Julia Sweeney. I mean, from 2 rooms away, just the way their voice sounds. And I always suggest to beginning performers, record yourselves, and it's so painful to listen at the beginning, but just put it on in a room, 2 rooms away, or put it on softly and listen to just the sound of it, and notice that you're not that interesting. I mean, most performers at the beginning, it's just kind of flat. And just start to try to make your voice more interesting, just try to make it have expression in it. Try to have it. And then when you get a laugh, go listen to that laugh and write that line down, and just start listening to the good parts.
It's so funny, because even though we teach in different lanes, comedy is the umbrella that goes over them. So I teach writing too, but the majority is coaching actors for performance. And I talk about what you sound like all the time off of that. And I say, again, I like to keep things simple and digestible. We can get sophisticated, but sometimes we just need to hear things clearly so we can go, got it. And one of the things I say a lot is, look, unless we're dealing with the genres of specifically action, adventure, or fantasy, comedy, and even drama, most of what your eyeballs have seen your whole life, it's not even my opinion, we can prove it, are people just standing there or sitting there having a conversation. And maybe like on the procedurals, we get a little like walk and talk. Okay, so you're walking in a straight line. But the mind-bogglingly vast majority of television are people just standing or sitting in a place. And so to me, and then especially when it comes to comedy, how your performance sounds, and if you're in good voice and you've got a strong voice, and then you combine it with the punctuation and inflection and hitting the operative or functional keywords in a sentence, it all adds up to really mastery of a comedic performance, as opposed to one that's maybe fine, but not necessarily competitive. I'm sorry, I'm just geeking out because I love talking about the DNA of comedy so much, and there aren't a million people I
Yeah.
can do that with. Um, but I are also, one of the words that you said or phrases you said was like, building stories. I also think of it very much as an architectural job.
Mm.
Math doesn't jive with me. And if you think of it mathematical and it's mathematical the way you hear it, that's fine. And I understand it. But I always think of it as building something because,
I like
a great story crescendos, right? Just like a great song. It's never the beginning, middle, and end. It's always the beginning, middle, and resolve. So we've got to get tension up and underneath it and excitement before we burst the bubble. All right, sorry, we just got excited. What else? Oh my gosh, I could talk about all of this forever. One of my questions for you, and you inadvertently answered it. This is kind of funny, and I mean, I can prove it. I can put it on the screen. But one of my questions to you was, what is the meaning of life, Beth Lapides?
What? Jeez.
But you actually said, do you remember?
No, what did I say? Oh, yes. Well, you find out what life is and then you die, so you may as well laugh. Yeah, I don't know what the meaning of life is. I'm more the purpose, I guess it's such a funny thing, the meaning of life. I think the meaning of life is just such a weird idea, honestly. I think everybody has something that gives their life meaning, and there's a sort of and a purposeful life. I mean, one thing I love about UnCabaret is it has given me purpose and mission, and that's more valuable to me than so many things that I have sacrificed a lot of things for that. And it's something that I do see people lost, and I think that's what is missing when people are lost is direction, and what is direction, is a purpose. And so I don't know what the meaning of all life is, except that I think life's meaning is life. I mean, I honestly, it's so existential, but I mean, the meaning of life is to live, and to live is life. Life is to live. I mean, the meaning of life is that there is an existence. That's what life means. Life means that there is life. I don't know. It's so like reductionist. But so the purpose of life is, the purpose of your life is to find what you can do that, I mean, that revelation I had was a 20-year-old's, take on it. And now that I'm 25, I would say I always think about helping people find the thing that they can do that no one else. That's when people seem happiest, is when they're doing a thing that really is so them, that really somehow only they can do, that they're not just filling in some sort of, I don't know, some box, that they're not just like, one person in a million who could do this thing. And that maybe isn't for everyone. Everyone doesn't want to find their own special thing, but, maybe it's not their job. Maybe it's that they want to raise 6 kids, or maybe God help you. But, it seems to me the people who are happiest on earth, and if, you can say happiness, I mean, who are most comfortably in their skin, there's so many ways to say that, who
Have some level of contentment.
Seem peaceful, seem to be giving more than they're receiving. I mean, there's all that, there is that too. At the beginning of show business, it is a lot about what can I get? And then at a certain point, a flip there's a little switch. And one of the things that I always forget, I've put it's so deep in me that, students start to think, oh, how do I get more laughs? I need to get more laughs. I wasn't getting any laughs. And I was like, well, the very first thing is you start to think about giving laughs. Once you start to think about it as something you're giving rather than you're getting, you're completely liberated. And if anything, I would say the purpose of life is to embiggen the idea of liberation and freedom, to that liberation and freedom are something that can be increased, and that our purpose on, I mean, maybe human life, that our purpose here is to understand the different, you know, that freedom and liberation have to do with how connected we are. And maybe the purpose of life is to put that energy into the universe, the purpose of human life. I mean, there's other life. I don't know. I don't know. I was really clear when I was younger, but now I'm like, I don't know, just try to get through the day, for God's sake. The purpose of life is get through the day for one more day.
Isn't that the motto of 2020, if no other year?
If you can just, you know what, see if you can get through today. That's the purpose.
Louise. Okay. A follow-up, fun, you know, but serious too. Are there muses?
Sure, I'm a muse. Are there like goddess creatures that are muses, you mean?
Otherworldly creatures? Yeah, all of the above.
I would say so. I mean, I believe in inspiration. I know that I know people use me to be inspired, so I feel that I know I can have a magical effect on people. So I feel I am a muse. So I would have to say yes, there are muses. But I would also say, in my own experience, you know, the word museum comes from is related to the word muse. And I know as a young girl, I was so drawn to museums. I mean, I just was pulled there magnetically. And I would sit in front of certain paintings for hours, just staring. I mean, there was a Hopper painting that I looked at. I grew up in New Haven, and at the Yale Museum, there was a picture of a Hopper painting that was one of the ones of a woman sitting at the edge of a hotel bed with a car outside and a packed suitcase. And I just remember staring at that painting like it was a waterfall. I mean, I just could not, to this day, I mean, in a lot of ways, I understand now why I was drawn to that painting, but it's still mysterious. I was drawn to the Museum of Modern Art in New York like crazy. I would sit in that water lilies room, and I loved the story of modern art because the story of modern art is a story, unlike show business, where the story of art is really like, you only really ever remembered the artists who changed the story. And that's how I grew up. That was, to me, how you got to be an artist, was to try to be one of those people that changed the story. So all those people were muses to me. And I mean, you look at who's big, you know, as someone like Madonna, that, you know, so many people are inspired by, and there are all sorts of creative spirits. And I think the most of the muses are also artists who have a big enough, what would be a word, aura, or vision, that other people are pulled into it and inspired and you know, carry it out. And I mean, I'm a big believer in other dimensions. I've had experiences with angels and orbs, and I don't know, are those things, you know, that's a whole, you know, other conversation, but for sure. And music. I mean, I came to music late as one of my foreign, I mean, I wanted to come to it much sooner, but I kept being pushed. People kept telling me no. I tried to come to it sooner. I'll tell you, this is a story about persistence, which I just, you know, for kids who are listening, persistence. I mean, what is the most important thing in all of this is persistence, you know, really just like failing and doing it again, and failing and doing it again, and seeing where you fell and how you fell, and maybe doing it a little differently next time. But I always wanted to sing, as everyone does. Singing is the best thing. Of course, everybody wants to sing. If you can sing, why would you do anything else? So I remember, like, in high school, I was not allowed into the chorus. I was like, No. I have tried to learn the flute. I couldn't even hold it. It was just one bad thing after another. Then when I became a performance artist, the criteria were very different. And I started to include music, my own kind of music, with my own weird scale, and, was writing my own songs, and I got musicians. Anyway, early on in my career, I got a really lovely review in the New York Times. It was really like, she's really someone to watch, and it was so great. And then at the end, and then mistakenly, she chose to sing. I put it away again. I don't even know if I did. I kept singing. And then, so no more songs. Every now and then I would do something musical, and I ran a campaign to make First Lady an elected position in 1992, which was a very successful media campaign. I got a ton of press, and some People magazine and CNN, and Oprah invited me to be on the show, and I made a horrible career mistake and said no, and whatever. Okay, anyway. But I used to do a piece, I had a piece in the stage show where I was like, we should change the national anthem, and it should be Que Sera Sera. And I had a thing of that, and how Smells Like Teen Spirit really sounded like Hello Mudda, Hello Fun. I know, it was a whole musical thing. Anyway, fade out, fade in. I'm working on my latest one-person show, 100% Happy 88% of the time, about 10 years ago. And a director saw it and was interested in working with me, and then was like, but what you need is more music. And I was like, that is probably not what I need. That's probably exactly the opposite of what I need, though I wish it was what I needed.
The New York Times said no.
Yeah, the New York Times said absolutely not. But, but a girl likes to think that maybe things have changed. So he connected me to a musical director, and we wrote some songs, and we put them in, and I somehow was able to pull them off. But there was one song in that show, which is the song Change, that Mitch and I, meeting Mitch changed my life, and that one song I still sing at the open of every UnCabaret, and people ask me, can I get a recording of it? And that song changed my life, and so it's funny because you don't have to it doesn't have to be everything. I don't have the voice, I don't have that thing that, is like, you can get jealous of. I'm not that kind of singer ever, but there are nights I sound all right, there are nights that I'm like, that actually, and people are like, that was great. And then there are nights that I'm just a comedian who's singing, and, but when we go back to muse, which was the original question, music is part of that. And certainly so much of music in popular culture is there to inspire us, and we're surrounded by it. I mean, we have 24/7 access to, every kind of music in the whole world, like right now. So no reason not to be inspired.
I just love all your answers. Okay, so I have one more question of my own.
One more question, all right?
And then
like
we should segue into the other folks.
All right.
But I was going to bring up Change, and that you sing that in front of, every evening of UnCabaret. And I personally find you inspirational, and I know that's true for other people. So I just thought I'd ask you this, referencing that song. We're living in a time of great change. What would you say to somebody I'll just make it simple. What if someone's really struggling with all the change we're going through right now? What would you say to them?
Who isn't? Who isn't struggling with that change? I mean, truly, number one, you're not alone. Know that. Every single person who seems like they're doing okay. Do I seem like I'm doing okay? I'm not. Compartmentalize, people. Start compartmentalizing. The most successful person I know, about 10 years ago, I asked him something. He said, well, I compartmentalize. I mean, obviously, I'm not okay. I just do do it anyway. And I'm saying that partly joking, and, tools. I would say tools. I mean, compartmentalization is a tool, but it's obviously, if you do that all the time, you'll drive yourself insane, but sometimes. But I have a regular meditation practice. I have a very strong reach out and talk to people practice. I don't isolate. I have people that I am accountable to. I have more than one person I'm accountable to, and that's a huge thing. I am a communicator and I take solace in communication, and I have a social network and I use it hopefully in ways that don't hurt me, and I keep working. And we are all struggling because if you're here in this thing, you're a sensitive person. You're not watching Gunnar and I talk about comedy and acting and performing for 90 minutes if like there's something in you that's not tender and delightful. So, give yourself a break. You're not, give yourself a break. I mean, it's sort of like this game of like, be harder on yourself and work harder because that's the only way you're get ahead, and then give yourself a break because you're tender and sensitive and gentle and all that. Work harder. It's a lot about the balance of those two things, and really like whether it's a yoga community or a church community or a meditation community or a chanting community, whether it's a 12-step program, whether you need people. If you're here, you're a social creature, and it's not necessarily set up. Our culture is sort of set up as a like nuclear family culture, and many of us don't have like that kind of nuclear family. So you want to make it be so that you take care of yourself, in that you make that a priority. Like you make a network, a real network of people who love you and who you love, and your relationship to those people are very important. That's not like, and also, oh, maybe I'll call that friend. Friends are something that are not just fun. It's not fun. It's not about, it's not about who can I go have fun with. You need to build relationships. So, that's number one. Number two, that's number like 12. I don't know how many numbers that is, but, one day at a time. There are, that's a thing that people say that's real, because I've really learned in my experience that things can change tomorrow. If you've lived long enough, you do know that things can change. And it's hubris to believe, to get into like a mindset of like, oh, I know it's all going to end. I mean, even with planetary climate crisis, it looks pretty bad. I mean, let's face it, it does. We don't know. It's not the end right now. Best efforts. So I would say all that. I would say, don't be afraid to walk through the fire. Everything that I've learned that's amazing has come from pain. And everything that you'll be as an artist that's amazing comes from pain. I have learned through real life experience that there's more. I call it God, call it whatever you will. In times of uncertainty, in places of uncertainty, when I have to let go of knowing, this is where the spirit moves in. And as an artist, you want to be able to court that. You want to literally court the muse, court God, court that inspiration. And the way you do that is by letting go of knowing. And that is the one hugest change you can make at any time that you're truly troubled. You can say, I don't have to know. The thing that I'm so upset about is usually there's a problem and I don't know the answer. I don't know what to do. Well, if you can let go of knowing what to do and start to believe that answers will come, and get into solution-based thinking, true solution-based thinking, which is asking, being humble, reaching out, praying, if you believe in praying, meditating. It doesn't have to be a prayer to God, but surrendering to, and not being a victim. All those things in combination, not surrendering in a way like, oh, I don't know, I'm just a victim. So all that shit, and and you will change, you will change, and things will change if you make room for it. I mean, things will change anyway, but they will often change for the better if you allow it to happen rather than force it to try to happen, and pay attention rather than, it's that thing where you try to force life to fit into your vision. So many things about my life that are like the best things about my life I could never have imagined. But on the other hand, here I am. I had this idea to do UnCabaret, and I made it happen, and I, was persistent. So, and it's one of the best things. So I don't know, a little of this, a little of that.
And it is iconic, and you are an icon.
A little of this, a little of that.
A little of this and a little of that. Okay, so now I'm going to see in 1 second. Actually, there's a tiny segment in between our conversation, and to see if the guests have any questions. If they don't, I'm going to ask you more questions for sure, because I love your take on life. So this is a little stimulus response. I have a questionnaire that I put everybody through, but it's rapid fire. So it's just me asking you, first answer. None of them are trick questions. None of them are terrible questions. It's just to see what's on your mind and see what comes out. It'll surprise us both, maybe. Okay? Are you ready?
Me or them?
No, you.
Oh, me. Okay, I'm ready.
You. Okay, here we go.
Fun.
3,
Okay.
2, 1. What does comedy mean to you?
Laughing.
If you could change one thing about the way the industry works, what would it be?
Women were actually, it was easier for women.
Do you think of yourself as successful?
Some days.
What's a funny word?
Doc.
I laugh every time. Every answer to that question makes me laugh. What's more important, self-expression or true respect from your peers?
God, just those two together, as true respect can't come unless it is, you can't have the respect. I mean, it doesn't mean anything unless it was true self-expression, because then you don't respect yourself, and then what good is there? I mean, aren't you your first peer?
Whew, that was deep. I'd say yes. Okay. Is there anyone not invited to your funeral?
No.
Okay. Is there...
Bigger the better. Come on. I want everyone there. The whole world should come.
Girlfriend wants a party. Understood. Okay, sure. I'll bring friends. Is there anything every human being on the planet, in your opinion, that has a responsibility to do? Whether they do it or not.
Yeah. I think be true to yourself. I mean, obviously, try to take care of the planet as the best you can is at this point. I mean, it's sort of a threefold thing. Be connected and be true to yourself.
But what if I hate the true person that other person is? Then what?
What if you hate? Oh, then you can just walk away. Don't be connected in close proximity.
Fair enough. Okay, so let me ask our guests, do you have any questions for Beth? Love stories, how do you find... Oh, here's one. How do you find new material, Beth?
Oh, I just keep doing the same 4 stories. I don't look for...
New is for patsies, isn't it?
Yeah, come on. I don't have time for that. Paying attention and, you develop like a little, I mean, it's so stupid, but I think of them as like those little stupid, rabbit, I don't know, alien ears that go like this when something is happening. And I can't have just a persistent notebook for jotting down. I don't jot down, and antenna, and I look for those stories. I mean, it's sort of like when it's happening now and it's a good story, like I'll know, like this is a thing, like pay attention to this. I don't know. It's like a thing where I don't know why I'm remembering this, but there was a time when Mitch and I were at his parents and we were supposed to be coming home and we could not find the keys anywhere. Like the keys were gone, the car keys. And we were in the desert and we had to get back, and his mom kept insisting that they'd fallen in the toilet when he was peeing. I mean, it was just like, and we looked everywhere and we couldn't get it AAA. I mean, and then the next day, they were found between two, how shopping bags will have two bags, and they were like actually in between. And I knew that was a story that meant something to me, that was like a metaphor for something. But as it was happening, I was like, losing the car keys, this is a thing, and this is funny. And I'm just like watching. That's like a small story that happened like in a day. I also have a sense of like what my big story is. So knowing what my big story is, I kind of also know like the things that are happening to me that connect to other things. When my mom was dying and when she passed, a lot of my material about my grandmother and my mom, I don't do family stuff that much, but it was super present for me. So I would say my sense of nowness. I think one thing to really remember about comedy is people look to it for helping them understand the now as much as anything else. So when I look for new stories in my present and in an expanded idea of what my present is.
Fantastic. So, I know from experience that producing a live show is a thing. It's a lot of work. And even if you've gotten good at it, even if you're used to it, it's a lot of communication. It's a lot of discipline. So with that as a preface, have you ever thought of walking away from UnCabaret?
Thought of it. I've done it so many times. It keeps taking me back.
What happens in those cycles?
What
happens in those cycles?
When I'm away from it?
Yeah, or when you're so you officially shutter for a certain time, or
usually it's like a venue will close or something like that, and then I'm like, because there's no show without a venue, and so when Luna Park closed, there have been times that I've been really looking for another venue, and then there are other times when like Luna Park closed after 7 years, and I just thought, that's good. I mean, that's a good amount of time for a show. And then HBO Workspace came and was like, we're desperate for you to be here. I was like, well, you're not open on Sunday nights. I have to do it on Sunday nights. And they were like, no, we'll open on Sunday nights. Well, there's no alcohol. There has to be alcohol, says the alcoholic, and well, we'll serve wine. So other times I've just kind of run out of, there've only been a few times really. And, one was we were in the desert and the venue, and I don't know, I just wanted to do other stuff. I mean, I just have felt over my life the balance of the amount of effort I have spent on that, which isn't exactly my work always. What is it adding up to? And but I got sucked back in the last time after the 100% Happy run. Somebody came to Mitch and I, a friend of ours, and said, oh, there's this room downtown, and it's a great room, and you maybe could do something there. And all right. And this is kind of a funny story. And a friend of mine had given me this card that said hope one way. And it was like my whole life was, it was like I was getting divorced and lost a house and bankruptcy. And like, so it was like a new beginning. And she gave me this card, and I moved 18 times in 2 years. It's a great story. But I kept this card with me everywhere I moved, and it said hope. It was like Hope Street one way. It was a street sign. So we went down to this venue, and it's very, as you know, like in venues in LA, it's mostly like for the door or this. And they were like in a pan. It was like a shockingly miraculous good gig. And so I said, sure, yeah, we could do this or that. And then Mitch said, well, let's do UnCabaret. And I was like, that show's dead to me. I'm never doing that show again. That show has sucked every piece of my life out. I'm never doing that. And Mitch was like, let's just do one for your birthday. Everybody loves it. It'll be great. I'll do it with you. We'll do music. Music. Yeah. And I was like, all right, fine. We'll do one for him. I mean, couldn't say no. It was like a good gig. So I was like, all right, we'll bring back one. So we walk outside, and I see that this venue is literally on the corner of First and Hope Street. And then I realized that the venue itself is called First and Hope. So if you want to talk about vision boards, it was like the smallest vision board in the world. It was one one card that I had carried around, and that sucked me back in. And then that was it. I was just, and then we did that venue close, and then the 25th anniversary show. I had friends that were like, you have to do it. You have to do a special show. I was like, I don't know, it's so much work. And people, sometimes when I have really faltered with UnCabaret, it's really been other people pulling me back in. And of course I've let them, but that's because it's a community, and I have really built a community. And when you build a community, sometimes the community can support the person who is the, head of the community. Nobody can do it alone. And that's been my experience.
Fantastic. You're captain of that ship, Beth. I mean, there's just, I don't know.
But I have a good crew. I mean, I have an amazing crew, and the crew has sometimes taken over when the captain has gotten seasick.
Sometimes we do. I'm in charge of a lot of things too. Responsibility is real.
Yeah, you are. You really are. It's huge.
It's huge. So most recently, you've housed at the Rockwell, and let's just make it super current, because Cabaret is still continuing online at the moment, correct?
Yes. Oh my God. The Zoom thing has been amazing. I mean, I just got an email today saying, I hope that you don't stop the Zoom shows when live shows start. And I mean, in a lot of ways, I feel like the Zoom shows have been better. I'm not alone. I mean, people are like, oh, it's like, because UnCabaret has always gone for intimacy and conversational. Those are the two sort of hallmark words. And those things are things that Zoom is built for. And I feel like there's really a need, and it's been great to be able to not be a local show. And we have viewers in Europe, and we're going to start doing reruns in New York time. And we've so many new people who have found us, and we've been able to work with performers we never could work with before. And it's fun for me again. It's innovative again. I've always been drawn to the talk format. I've always wanted to do, I've had a radio show, and I sold a talk show to MTV that got canceled before we got on air. And, it's a thing that I love. So, I love the Zoom thing. And to me, the Zoom shows, which, I don't know, we were like, oh, I guess we'll try a Zoom show. I mean, it's all an experiment. I feel I could really communicate that to people. The whole thing, your whole work experience is an experiment. You have to constantly be going, oh, I don't know, maybe this, I think this might work, and so it was like, I don't know, we're in quarantine. What about Zoom? Let's try it, and now we're going to, we've been trying different things with it all along. And so I'm very excited about this particular innovation. And the live shows were good, but it had gone from being a weekly show, which was kind of had a thing, to a monthly show, which seemed sort of like it was a little bit holding a spot. And I love doing my sets, and I love seeing my friends, but you're only booking one show a month. And I don't know. I mean, it's as much as I could do at this point. So I don't know. I'm going with the flow.
We've got some holidays coming up. Any thoughts about possibly a holiday themed show?
Well, we're going to do an election night show. That's the biggest holiday we have coming up.
I wish it was a national holiday.
We're part of an event that is a 12-hour event that Liz Winstead's AAF, Abortion as Fuck organization, put together, that's meant to, among other things, entertain the people who are at polling places. And we're going to do the 7 to 8 o'clock hour on election night. I don't know what that's going to be like. I mean, it might be that's a good example of I don't know. I mean,
but what a great experiment.
What a great experiment, and people ask you, try to say yes. Just, I don't know, they asked, and, sure.
Look, if there's one thing that's been the bane of my existence, it's been the joy, and the curse is that I say yes to everything.
Really? Yeah. It can be a joy and a curse. I do sometimes. I mean, I don't say yes to everything anymore. There's definitely a power to no, but I try to say yes. I mean,
not everything.
Yeah. I say yes to you.
I have infinite and overwhelming curiosity. That's a better way of saying it.
Well, that's a great gift, Gunnar.
Because it's not born out of insecurity that I'll miss something. I'm just like, I could be interesting.
Yeah. Curiosity, I mean, really, yeah, curiosity that is a gift.
So I have it. I mean, you kind of talked about it a little bit. One of the specific questions then was just, I know you're involved in a lot of things. What are the most exciting things that you're involved in right now? Any other projects, I guess, I'll just make it a little bit more general.
I'm doing an original audiobook that I can't really talk about till we're ready to put it out, but I'm doing that for recorded books, and that's really interesting and challenging and hard, and involves a lot of people, and yeah, it's super challenging and interesting.
Exciting. I'm taking some training myself to get into that field currently.
Oh, this is not, I'm not like, I'm writing a book.
Uh-huh. Okay, yeah.
But then it's like an oral history. It's like conversations it's like a conversation book, sort of.
Got it. Here's another question. This is just great. Probably it's just you open your phone at this point, but how do you cast for UnCabaret?
That is not true. I don't just open my phone. I work so hard at it. I talk to people who are on the show. I mean, I like it to be a family experience. So I do love bringing in friends of friends so that there is that sense of an expanding thing. But I do it's an open door. I mean, people send me things. I don't watch everything that people send me, but it doesn't never happen. I watch a lot of stuff. There's a lot of people I want to have that I try to get that I can't get. I mean, there are people I love that, are so busy and they won't ever do it. But I don't even know if they're thinking, I've tried, direct messaging people on Twitter. There are people whose work I really admire, and I don't feel like we've done great in our diversity. I'm trying to be proactive about that. And so, but also I really do book a show. This is something I don't know that people understand. I do book a show. I mean, each show has to have a cohesive thing, and I'm very conscious of who I'm putting with who. So there might be somebody I want to add, and there's just not a spot for them for a while. Because there are different flavors and different colors, and I don't want to have someone who's too much like someone else because it doesn't do either of them a flavor. I don't want to do either. I want it to be good for everybody. I want everybody to come off very much like an individual. So I don't want to have people that seem a little similar. And I don't want to have two super political people right next to each other, and I don't want to have, it's like that.
I do get it. I mean, a lot of people don't understand. I mean, writer or actor, whatever creative field you want to, specialize in or multiples, everyone should produce some shows to really learn how to be an adult in the entertainment business, because it's a thing. Even when I ran an improv group, there's a parallels because I had a core group, but I would invite guest improvisers, and then even just deciding what games to put up in the lineup. It wasn't just like, oh, let's just get on stage and make things up. I was producing a show that nobody else had to do it, but I spent hours thinking about how it was going to fly when it went up in front of the audience. So yeah. Producing is real.
It's real.
How can they find out more about your classes if they'd like to spend time studying with you?
BethLapides.com.
And then that'll get us to Cabaret and also your classes. Do you have upcoming classes on the calendar now, Beth? Or
my current class filled up, and I'm thinking about doing a holiday class, but I can't tell if it's going to be too much for me. I haven't scheduled it yet. I will do one in January. There'll be a winter workshop. And there's a couple of videos on YouTube. One is called You But Funnier. One is called The 8 Habits of Highly Creative People, that are just exactly like this, me just chatting and sharing about an hour's worth of information. So there's that. And there will be definitely a winter class. And if you want to, reach out to me and hold your spot in it, you can do that. I guess I was waiting to announce it until I figured out what I was going to do about the holidays. My email list is a great idea. Get on my email list. I always put the classes, and then you find out about the UnCabaret shows as well.
Awesome. And I totally understand. I'm with you. It's like there's just been so much this year. And to our credit, we've made it thus far, but it's like, I know I'm trying to book classes. People are like, when are you going to do that next fill in the blank? And I'm like, I'm just surviving too. I'm getting there, everybody.
Are you going to teach during the holidays? I mean, I not during the holidays, but I mean, I could do one that's like middle of November to middle of December, but I don't know. I mean, nobody's going to go anywhere, but
we're literally class planning now on our Chattable. But no, everybody can relate. I think the same things. I'm like, well, people are maybe not getting on planes so much. So I'm in a little bit of a different spot because I teach courses that have a beginning and end date, but then I also have ongoing classes. Right. So I'll keep my ongoing classes, as long as I can. Probably just take a couple, I always hibernate for the winter anyway. But I think I've probably have put the kibosh on any more short courses just until we get to January, because I've also just got to take care of myself.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, as a teacher, kids, you don't want a teacher who's not, taking care of them. You want a teacher who is filled up, that they have enough to give you. And I can't decide that time might just have to be time for, but I also loved, as you do, I can tell, you love it. And I do love, it's fun. I don't know. It's just kind of fun for me. It's 2 hours. I'm drained afterwards. It's like draining fun, it's like 2 hours of,
it is. For me, I'm very self-aware that winter is a good time for me to slow down and shut down. I look forward to it every year. And, we're in fall now, but it's going to go by quickly. So, I also have, my book is coming out.
Oh, that's exciting.
I'm very excited about that. It's called The Comedy Code, soon to be available. So I just have a lot else going on. And these chattables, although have been very uplifting and exciting. We'll take this as the last question, see if you have any thoughts, and then we'll wrap. So how do you feel about spoken word performers or performance? And then one on one of those talent shows, which I vaguely recall. I don't know if you knew that was a thing. America's Got Talent? Was it America's? Does anybody know? Our audience is always so smart. So
I think it was. I'm fine with it. My main objection to the spoken word world is the same thing as I have with the comedy world. I recoil against that sort of sound, the sort of, oh yeah, that sounds like spoken word. I hate it when it sort of sounds like comedy too. Anything that's sort of that prepackaged sound. But there's been a ton of it's opened up a whole world of like storytelling for people and creativity and I prefer things that are funny, but everyone doesn't. And everybody should work at their level. So I'm great with it. I'm great with the idea of spoken word. In a sense, the comedy is spoken word. The idea of spoken word is a way for people to bring personal self-expression to an audience. And how's that bad? You can't complain. You'd be an idiot to complain about that.
Can't complain about communication.
Can't complain about people trying to communicate. Yeah, and ultimately, stand-up is poetry. When you look at it on paper, it's very spare. When you write it, it looks like poetry. Even if you're telling a story, to me, it's a poetry form. And if I had to reduce what I am to a word, I guess poet would be what it is. But so I love spoken word.
Well, fantastic. I got a question. Are you doing an audio version of your book, Gunnar? Yes, give me time, but there will be one. So that is our time. I am deeply grateful that when I invited you, You said yes.
Oh, thank you for asking. It was fun. It was great to see you. God, I love, thank God for Zoom and we can see each other this way.
Right? I'm so grateful for that too. Thank God we have the technology, during this time, because I don't know what it would be like otherwise. So I am really glad that we can connect. In Chattable, it was an experiment, like you were talking about. I'm like, I don't know, I'll try. It's a conversation, it can't hurt. And it was a cheap excuse to connect with people that I truly enjoy anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I'm doing this book and I have to talk to a lot of people for it. And some people are people I already know, and some people are people I wish that I knew. And it's just, thank God. I mean, I just say thank God, because otherwise I'd be just sitting in a corner crying.
Is who knows? Well, before we officially close, there's always one thing that when I thought of the format of Chattable, it's fairly simple. I have my little speed quiz Q&As, and I thought I'd like to give my guests something. If we were in person, I'd hand you something. Truly, it probably would be a mug or a T-shirt. But since we're not in person, I had to get creative. So here's what it is, and it's whatever it means to you. So I have this box of Louise Hay's.
Okay.
Power thought.
I have such a Louise Hay story, but I'll save it for another time. But go ahead.
Is it triggering? Did I trigger you?
No, not at all. It's a good story.
Okay, good. So this is my gift to you. I'm just going to flick through. You'll say stop at a certain point,
okay.
Whatever card we stop
That's
on.
my card. Okay.
And you can buy into it or not, but I believe it's
all right. I'm into it.
Here.
Sure.
Okay. She's into it.
Tell me when you start flipping.
Okay. So say stop at any time.
Stop.
Okay. This is the card you were supposed to have. And I'll show it to you so you have a visual. Everything I touch is a success.
Oh.
I now establish a new awareness of success. I know I can be as successful as I make up my mind to be. I move into the winning circle. Golden opportunities are everywhere for me. Prosperity of every kind is drawn to me.
Ah.
Look, they're called power thought cards. They're all good. But Beth, that was a really good one.
That's a really good one. Will you take a picture of it and text it to me?
I will. Here, I'm going to leave that one out. Okay, so folks, with that, we come to a close of this week's Chattable. Next week's guest is Camila Lopez, who I am very excited to talk with. Camila is not solely, but very much responsible for getting the Equal Rights Amendment passed in the state of Virginia. And so now we're right, which was another state that we needed to add to the mix to actually add it to the Constitution. So if we transition our administration, there is now a chance that we can get the Equal Rights Amendment passed. So Kamala is an actor, a writer, and a force to be reckoned with on the earth. So I'm very excited about having that conversation.
Right.
Inadvertently, so many of my guests have been powerful women that it's Chattable has an undercurrent of acknowledging that things are harder for women. And I'm glad to be hosting, that conversation, even though it's not the direct theme. I'm noticing that it keeps coming up. So we've got to bring equality into this world, and it needs to be more fair and equitable for everyone, but women in particular, because it's been too problematic for too long.
I made T-shirts after the debate the other night that say I'm speaking. Those are available now.
Fantastic. So it looks like our guests loved talking to you as much as I love talking to you. Nice. You're a national treasure. Thank you so much. Stay safe and take care of yourself.
You too. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
We'll be in touch. All right. Much love. Bye, everybody. See you next time.